Hello guys, welcome back to another video on the status forecast weather channel. In today's video we're going to be going over a massive active weather pattern setting up for the upcoming week into the first couple of weeks of January and potentially even in, February into March. Things could be very interesting. And that warm-up has been dropping significantly, and the climate prediction center agrees with it. So as of now, we're just going to go over the radar and satellite, then we'll get into the Climate Prediction Center's latest updates, and then we will get into the forecast models. So right now, we're just dealing with some cloud cover across the northern half of the country, especially in the western half of the country, where we have a little bit of atmospheric river going on, with rain and snow happening in the San Francisco, especially in the northern California area. It also extends into portions of the upper plains and through the Midwest as well, where parts of Minnesota, Wisconsin, and areas of the Great Lakes region, along with Canada, getting on some heavier snow. Across the eastern half of the country, we're dealing with just some plain old cloud covered, especially across the northeast. But in the southeast, we are staying dry, maybe some showers offshore, and then maybe some sprinkles across southern Louisiana with some cloud cover. But in the southeast, we are mainly dry. Here are the temperatures right now. So the temperatures right now are actually on the cooler side of things, but obviously, for weeks ago, we saw a major Arctic blast in the upper plains. That is no longer the case, but we are still cold in the northeast throughout Canada, and even some parts of northern Montana. The southeast and parts of the southwest, and especially across the state of Texas, are in kind of a mild spell right now, with temperatures between 55 and 70 degrees in most spots. The warm spot on the map right now is Miami, Florida, at 75 degrees. The cold spot right now is in Vermont, of a -8 degrees temperature, and near the Ottawa, Canada area in northern New York. So as I mentioned, we have some changes coming up. So the first one is the temperature. So the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook has been released by the the CPC, or also known as the Climate Prediction Center. You can also call it the CPC, but it is known as the Climate Prediction Center. So the Climate Prediction Center thinks for temperatures right now are going to be in the Pacific Northwest, the Upper Plains, the Great Lakes area, and extending into the Great Plains and even into the western half of the country, where below average temperatures are expected. We are expecting above average temperatures in the eastern half of the country, avoiding much of the northeast and somewhat of the Great Lakes region as well. But we have a above average temperature risk that is in place for the mid-Atlantic, parts of southern New England in the northeast, and extends all the way down through Florida, where the bullseye for above average temperature seems to be in the Carolinas, especially South Carolina, the southern half of Georgia and Alabama, as well as the northern half of Florida, and that extends all the way back to portions of Arizona and New Mexico. For the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, this is definitely probably not what you were expecting, but this is what we are looking at now. So here's the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. So we are dealing with below average temperatures expected for probably 60 to 65% of the country, extending from the northeast all the way back to the Pacific Northwest, as far south as the Ohio Valley and that goes through about the areas throughout northern Texas, and it covers pretty much the entire western half of the country. Above average temperatures are expected for the southeast, especially Florida, getting on above average temperatures. Here's the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, and we actually have some interesting news on snow hazards, but we'll get into that in just a minute. But the 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook from the Climate Prediction Center has pretty much 50 to 55, maybe closer to 60% of the United States under an above average precipitation outlook, especially to the northeast, avoiding eastern Maine all the way back to Texas, avoiding much of the Florida area and back through the southern half of South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and as well as Louisiana. But all the way through the Rocky Mountains and all the way through parts of the upper plains are in above average precipitation. I'm concerned, but the hot spot seems to be about through the Pennsylvania area and back through this the Tennessee Valley and up through the Mississippi Valley, through portions of northeastern Texas. And there's also another bullseye that covers Colorado, portions of South Dakota, the Kansas area, as well as the Utah area and other portions of the United States in the western half of the country. Below average temperatures are expected for the extreme Pacific Northwest, the extreme upper plains, the southwestern half of the country, and pretty much the entire state of Florida and areas like far southern Georgia. And then near normal precipitation outlooks are expected for the eastern half of Maine the Upper Plains, the Great Lakes region, and even clipping parts of the Great Plains, all the way back to the western half of the country and portions of the southeast. Sorry, the 8 to 14-day precipitation outlook by the Climate Prediction Center. This has, I'd say, even close to 75 to 80% of the country dealing with an above-average precipitation. So pretty much the entire eastern half of the country, all the way back to the Gulf Coast, all the way back to the western half of the country. Only spots with near normal temperatures are expected to be the extreme Pacific Northwest, the extreme Great Lakes regions, and the Upper Plains, the Southwest, and the Southeast. Only area that has below average precipitation outlook is pretty much the entire state of Florida, getting away from the northern half of Florida. So pretty much the entire state of Florida there. Avoiding parts of southern Georgia and northern Florida. Here's when things get interesting. This is the risk of heavy snowfall for the next 5 to 10 days or so. This goes from February 8th through February 14th. This is the Climate Prediction Center's heavy snow risk, and it really covers the exact areas that we think are going to be experiencing the most snow. So as we zoom in on here, this is the interesting part. So this is the moderate risk of heavy snow. This is through interior New England in the northeast and through pretty much the entire central and coastal areas of Maine, and northern Maine does not get on this. There is a slight risk of heavy snowfall that expands from about the northeast in through portions of Pennsylvania all the way back to the Great Plains and the Upper Plains as well, and the Great Lakes as well. So here's the actual forecast as far as models go. Again, models do not depict what actually is going to happen, so it just gives us a general idea of where we could see the rain, where we could see the snow, where we could see the sleet or freezing rain, or, the colder or warmer temperatures. So right now, we're just watching for a clipper system that can move through the Great Lakes region that will introduce some snow for the interior portions of the northeast and even to southern New England. That system goes through, things have a little bit quieter before we get our next system to go through. I'm going to slow things down so you guys can further see what's going on. So we get this little system that forms back through portions of the central part of the country. It all comes together, sort of, and then it begins into a little bit of a system that moves off the coast of the northeast, primarily hitting southern New England in areas like Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island as well, and as well as the Cape Cod area. That system goes through with some widespread scattered snow showers, possibly for the state of Maine and through interior New England and northeast. We get a little bit of a high pressure system that develops through the 8th, and then things would get more interesting as we continue on. We get a little bit of a system that develops around the 9th of February, and this extends to the 10th of February with a major, well, I wouldn't say major, but a significant snowstorm for the northeast. And I would not necessarily call this a nor'easter because it does not look all that strong, but things can definitely change. So it looks to me how this thing plays out as it comes basically to the central part of the country. This area of low pressure really develops somewhere in the Pacific, in the western half of the country, and then it kind of basically digs all the way through and really gathers its energy as another low pressure system develops off the coastline of the northeast, and it really transfers its energy to the other area of low pressure and really sets up a big time snowstorm for the northeast. And then that's where that system goes through, maybe some lingering snow showers through the 10th on Monday. And then things have a little bit of a lull in the action, but not before another system develops with a more large-scale system with potentially some severe weather in the central part of Texas. And that would extend through portions of the southeast with a high precipitation, a large scale precipitation field. And it basically just kind of rides that jet stream all the way up the eastern seaboard with a little bit of a mixed bag of snow, sleet, and freezing rain right along the immediate coastline, and then rain for interior in southern New England with a strong line of a squall line forming with severe weather in the southeast. That system goes through, kind of another lull in the action before we get another system that develops. This is what we're looking at. And then through the 16th of February, potentially another small-scale winter storm for the northeast and interior New England. And then that system goes through, and then that's that. So here's the latest model that I have access to on the European model, also known as the ECMWF model. You can go find the 18Z on a Tropical Tidbits, or when this run comes out on Pivotal Weather. So again, we're kind of watching this little clipper system that moves through the northeast with some relatively very light snow through the northeast. Probably not much of a travel impact day. And then a little bit of mixed precipitation, mixing snow showers throughout the interior parts of the northeastern New England. We get a little bit of lull in the action before we get our first system that develops. It's a major system anyways. Looks like a widespread freezing rain event through the northeast. That system goes through with some rain freezing rain and sleet. That moves through. That system will likely have a pretty good dose of heavy snow for the interior Northeast. And then as we continue on in New England, and then we continue on through the 8th, we get another system that develops and kind of takes basically the same track again with some heavy, probably more heavy wet snow for the interior Northeast. And this one kind of brings that snow line all the way down across portions of Massachusetts, so maybe some locations there getting on some snow. That continues on. Again, another lull in the action, but not before another system that develops. This system takes a little bit more of a southerly turn with a high pressure up to the north and east. That system kind of rides along the jet stream again, transfers this energy to the other system, which makes it for a big-time snowstorm around the 13th. And then another system pulls up to the 13th as well, with mixing snow along the coastline in the Northeast with a major-time snowstorm. And then once again, another system that develops through the 15th and 16th would look like another major-time winter storm, and then gusty winds behind it with snow showers. So here's what we're looking at for snowfall. So again, you're going to see a lot of snow throughout the Northeast, as you can already tell. It's going to be a active few couple of weeks of February, so you can really tell where the heaviest snowfall accumulation. I don't know why they're thinking there's going to be snowfall as far south as Louisiana and Texas. We're likely not to see that again, but it's also definitely possible. But the heaviest snow seems to fall in the interior Northeast in New England and across the California mountains and up to the western half of the country in the Pacific Northwest. And then lighter snow accumulation, but still relatively heavy throughout the upper plains, the south, even closer to the southern plains and the Great Lakes region, all the way back to the Great Plains, the Ohio Valley, and even parts of the Mid-Atlantic. And then obviously the southeast, where we don't typically expect snow this time of year, is probably not going to get on any decent snowfall accumulation. So here's the GFS model. It's going to be a little bit more, maybe not as intense on the snowfall accumulation, but here's a general idea of what we could see. So again, it doesn't bring that snowfall accumulation all the way down into portions of Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas, but it does have a pretty good snow event for portions of the Northeast and pretty much the entire northern half of the country. So really all I can say here is the northern half of the country is going to be getting a good, significant snowfall for their significant snowfall deficit, but across portions of the southeast and up through the western half of the country, we could be dealing with, pretty much no snowfall accumulation. As far as the European model goes with the rainfall accumulation, again, most of this is just going to fall as snow, but we could see some rainfall. So rainfall can be expected in the southeast, but areas that have the higher colors, like the yellow and the extreme, like reds, well, not some of it, but a good chunk of it, especially if you're seeing it in the northeast, you're mostly dealing with just snow. But rainfall really across the southeast is going to be really beneficial, and then obviously areas in California that have been experiencing those wildfires is likely going to get in some heavy rainfall accumulation, which will be very good for their drought and the fires, maybe get rid of them as well, with the atmospheric river conditions going on. Really, the entire country really gets on a beneficial rainfall. Only areas that likely would probably see some rainfall, but not near as much, would be the extreme southwestern half of the country. Here's what we could be doing for rainfall accumulation across the country as far as the GFS model goes. So again, much of the rainfall that you're seeing across the Northeast, the Ohio Valley, into the Mid-Atlantic, and through the northern half of the country is mostly going to be snow. But again, 2 inches of rain is about, close to 2 feet of snow, so that's that. So there's, for about the areas, about the Kentucky area on southward and across the Texas area, you're probably dealing with mostly just rain. So rainfall accumulations are expected to be on the heavier side of things, especially across the southeast. But in this streak of heavy rainfall here, this could be rainfall, but it also could be partially snow as well. But again, southeast getting on beneficial rainfall. Only areas that won't be experiencing likely any rainfall will be the southeast, especially areas across portions of Arizona, the southern half of Nevada, and the southeastern half of California, and then obviously areas discounted from the United States, such as Mexico. So the temperatures are also going to be a big problem, big feature, especially when we get into the third week of the middle of February, when things become a little bit more uncertain. This is what we could be looking at. So again, the Northeast is going to stay relatively cold, but we're going to see this little warm up through the country around the time frame of the Monday 3rd, with warm temperatures all the way up to the east. Not like really warm temperatures, but a little bit above average temperatures, not by much so. And then we get a cool down again, and then it gets really cold in the Northeast around the 5th of February, and then things another little bit of a warm-up to the eastern half of the country, but then yet another cool down. And then directly after that, yet another warm-up, but again, none of these warm-ups look really significant, like a significant warming. It's going to be just a relatively quick warming, but we do get really cold temperatures, and then we get really cold temperatures that move through. But again, with these colder temperatures, it has a difficult chance to just, get the warm air all the way up the eastern seaboard. But cold air does seem to take over, and then really things become more uncertain, but it looks like cold may take over. Here's the GFS model. So again, I think the GFS model is going to be a little bit more lighter on the warm, I would think, because it's not near as significant. Yeah, just by a tad though. So here's a look. Where the bigger warm-ups are going to be is probably, if I go back a few notches, to about the 3rd through 6th of February, we see pretty mild spell before things cool down again, and then yet another warm-up is possible through the 7th, through the 8th before things cool down again, and then yet another warm-up possible, tiny warm-up through the 9th, but doesn't really make it all the way up the eastern half of the eastern seaboard, and then another warm-up. But notice none of these warm-ups never actually get all the way up into the country, so we're not dealing with a significant warm-up. And then cold air does seem to want to just stick around, so again, winter's not necessarily over quite just yet. So here's what we could be dealing for freezing rain accumulation or accretion for the next couple of weeks, especially from one of those systems that may come from the central United States into the northeast with a little bit of more of an inside runner. So again, it stretches from, I don't know why there's freezing rain all the way down here in Texas, but it's always possible, but I don't necessarily agree with that. So again, the stretch is going to begin probably from the northeastern corner of about the Oklahoma area. That will go through the Mid-Atlantic and Ohio Valley all the way up to the coastline of the northeast. Again, especially the Maine area. So it'll be a long streak from about around a half an inch of ice all the way to around an inch of ice from this streak of ice. So yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Again, it looks like a stormy weather pattern coming up and potentially a wintry weather pattern coming up with again, warm air will try to fight back the cold, but the cold air does seem like it's going to be a little bit more over-controlling across the northern half of the country with multiple chances of snow in the near future. So it looks like February into March could be a relatively snowy month. Typically what we see across the United States, typically in the northeast and the upper half of the country, the northern half of the country is typically where we see the most snow in February, I think. But again, so temperatures I think are going to warm up slightly, but they're not going to be like tremendously warm. We're going to see those warm spells, we're going to see the cold spells, but typically I think we're going to see more of the cold than we are going to be seeing the warm. But obviously I could be wrong, I'm just giving my general opinion. So yeah, hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We're trying to reach 100 subscribers. Stay safe out there, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.